Amen. You can be seated. How's everybody doing today? With ice in it. Okay. Well, welcome. My name is Nick. I'm one of the pastors, and we just got done singing "Same God, my God, I Need You." And never, probably more in my life was that a true statement than about 10 years ago, actually exactly 10 years ago, yesterday. As we start this series entitled House Party, one of the things that we're going to be doing is celebrating what God has done in his house, in this place, and through this movement we call RiverLake, and at the same time talking about kind of what's next. And so I've spent some time reflecting on kind of what got us here. And again, 10 years ago from yesterday, I had one of the scariest moments I've ever had in my life. And if you know me, if you hang around me much, not much rattles me. In fact, I think I'm pretty good under pressure. I kind of like chaos. I like putting on that Superman cape, and I'll fix it, and I can handle it, and I can deal with it. And so normally not much bugs me. But this day with all integrity and all honesty, I can say I had what I would call a mini freak out moment. See, here's what this day looked like 10 years ago. If you've ever wondered what Ralphie's look like and what our service is, this was our pre-service. We were going to launch in 2 weeks from this day on Easter Sunday, April 20th. The mailers were out. Everybody was excited. We had a small group of people, as you can see, this is kind of what we started with, a small group of people who believed in the vision and mission to make it easy for everyone to find and follow Jesus, and we were going to change the city. It was going to be awesome. And we were praying big, audacious prayers, and we were excited, and we had redone that whole place and painted it and just did so many incredible things. And there's a gentleman there that you've never met, and here's why. Right there, I think his name was Dave. He was our worship leader. And he had been there for a few weeks, and they were in, and his wife was incredible. She did announcements, and just wonderful couple. And while everybody was worshiping, in this picture, what is not seen is me. I'll tell you where I'm at. I am right behind that curtain, right there. On the other side, there's a hidden closet, and I am holding on to one of the metal beams, and I'm praying one of the most aggressive, terrified prayers I've ever prayed. Because what you don't see in the picture is what happened about 15 to 20 minutes before this shot was taken. He had walked up to me 5 minutes before service started and said, "Hey, Nick, I just need to let you know some crazy stuff had happened. My wife took a job, I think it was in Tampa, Florida, and we're going to take it. I just wanted you to know." And again, I'm really calm. Normally, I'm cool. And I'm like, "Hey, that's not the ideal. Really like you. This is awesome, but I totally get it, man." I said, "Listen, let's just get through Easter. We got Easter. Got to get through Easter. Let's get through Easter. And, we'll talk about transitions and go from there." And he goes, "No, you don't understand. We're leaving Friday." I'm like, oh. And I am in the back of that room, and I am praying the craziest prayers, and I'm going, "God, I need you. I have no hope." And literally, I pray, I said, "God, if I have to lead worship, it's going to be terrible. No one's coming back. No one wants to hear me sing. It's just terrible." You ever like, "Why doesn't Nick lead?" I suck, okay? That's exactly the reason why it is, okay? I am terrible at that. And so again, I'm praying and going, "God, I need you." Listen, there is no one. And the tension is this, to make it even worse. It took us forever to find him. Because believe it or not, Glasgow's not a super big town. And when you look at that and you go, "Okay, but how many of Glasgow, how many are worship leaders?" You go, "That's a smaller pie." You make it an even smaller pie. How many are worship leaders that would want to fit in this church and this culture? That's an even smaller pie. And then when you ask the question, how many are worship leaders who would fit in this kind of culture and want to put up with Nick Smith as a pastor? That's a very small pie. And I'm praying, I'm going, "God, I don't know what you're doing." But I'm honestly a little bit scared because we're excited. But if you don't show up, it's never going to work. And obviously it worked, and how it worked out is a different story for a different day. But as I was thinking about that story and kind of that prayer and really starting this series, there's a quote from a pastor named Brian Tome that I think epitomizes one of, not the only reasons, but one of the reasons I think RiverLake has been so successful in a day and age when churches seem to be falling down. And it's this quote right here. It's of Jesus' 41 miracles in the Bible, 34 of them. This is fascinating to me. start when someone asks him for help. Most of the other 7 still involve initiative, washing eyes, showing themselves to priests, etc. This is what I love. God is looking for the spiritually aggressive people who are ready to move and want help. Don't just think, pray and ask. And I love this image of spiritually aggressive people. I think that's really one of the reasons that God has blessed our church is because we have put ourselves in positions to be spiritually aggressive. We are going to go. We are going to pray. We are going to be audacious in our prayers and our desires and our dreams and our vision for this community and this church. We will do what no one else will do to see people come to Christ. And we will do our best to live this out. And I saw this and I thought of this, and I want to talk today about what it looks like for you to be spiritually aggressive in your faith, because I hope that this becomes your life. And my prayer is that it would continue to be the life of RiverLake. And so what I want to do today is I want to kind of preach at 2 different levels, just so you know it, heads up. I want to talk about what the last year of my life has been. And so we're going to walk through some of the things that I've been struggling with and praying through and processing for the church as we come up on year 10 of us and what's next for us. But I want to speak to you about your walk and your part in pursuing God in a very spiritually aggressive way, because I think these are the people that change the world. And I think that's the kind of person that deep, deep down you want to be like, even if you don't know it yet. And so if you know anything about our church and the spiritual aggressiveness that it is, it started with a piece of scripture that changed my life forever. And I go back to it quite a bit. It's the story of the feeding the 5,000. It's found in Mark 6 and the other Gospels as well. But I want to walk through it again, and I want to talk about it from maybe a little bit different vantage point today. But kind of set the stage for, again, this church, celebrate some stuff in the past and talk about maybe what it means for you. But if you're not familiar with the story, that's okay. It's Mark 6. Jesus had been teaching all day. He's teaching, and he's walking through this. And at some point, his disciples say, hey, listen, boss, you're killing it. Man, that stuff about forgiving people, that was money. That's awesome. We're tired. And they're tired, and like the sun's setting, and we have no LED lights anymore, okay? Then we don't have these around here, so like, why don't you send the people away, get some food, get some rest, we'll pick it up tomorrow. It's been a great day. And here's what Jesus says, it's so powerful. He says this, but he answered, meaning Jesus, well, if they're hungry, you give them something to eat. And they said to him, that would take more than a half a year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat? He looks at them, the disciples look at him and go, are you kidding me? That costs like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, whatever like half a year for you is, you know? Are you kidding? Do you know how much that would cost? Boss, come on, listen. It's just going to feed them for one day. It's not even going to make a difference. We're not even sure they're here for the right reasons. We're not even sure they're Christians. I mean, listen, you just want us to waste all that money? And Jesus is like, absolutely. Because meeting the needs of the community is never a waste. If you ever wonder why we spend so much money on blessing the community through Let Hope In, through Easter egg hunts, through candy jams, it's because we believe radical generosity at its core changes the hearts of men and women. And it's easy to sit back like some of the disciples and go, do you know how much that costs? And God's up there going, do you know how little I lack? See, at the end of the day, God is not looking for men and women who have great amounts of money and great amounts of time. He's looking for men and women who have a great amount of faith. And as long as the church walks with a scarcity mindset, we will be stuck in the past, never being able to pursue the future. And so as we talk about what's next for the church, I want to come back to this story because there's a principle here that I think we need to get, all of us do, whether it's for us, RiverLake, but also for you in your job, in your marriage, with your kids and whatever. And so the story goes on. Jesus says, how many loaves do you have? And he said, go and see. And when they found out, they said 5 and 2 fish. Now, side note, and this is hilarious to me. If you read some of the other versions, you find out it wasn't even theirs. They found a little kid and stole his Lunchable. That's exactly what happened. The 12 disciples are sitting around going, we got nothing. Well, we got to give him something. Jimmy's got a ham Lunchable. Take it, okay? And Jimmy's going, what? And they're like, it's for Jesus. Stealing's okay. So anyway, they're like, just take it. And so anyway, they give this to Jesus. It is nothing in the big scheme of things, okay? But then this is what God does. This is what Jesus does in our lives. When we give him what we have, he multiplies what we don't. And so here's the deal. It says, how many loaves do you have? 5 loaves, 2 fish. It says, then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. And goes on, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied. That's crazy. 5 loaves, 2 fish. Jesus is sitting there and doing some magic or miracle or whatever you want to call that, and it's just multiplying and multiplying. I would have loved to have been the disciples going, which basket number are you on? 42. Okay, just keep going, man. Just figure it out. Like, just don't look. We'll just pretend, like, you know. And then it says this. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of the men who had eaten was 5,000. And there were women and children there. And so there are estimates, because they had big families, that it easily could have been 15,000, 20,000 people. Thousands of people are there. And what I want you to see is we kind of start this journey of celebrating what God's done and how we got here, but also more importantly, where we're going. There is a principle that is so important to us as a church, and it's this right here, that we believe that what we add, Jesus multiplies. And I would say that for you too. What you add, Jesus multiplies. Have you ever thought about it? Like isn't it crazy? A positive word in your marriage, you add a positive word in your marriage, multiplies in their heart over time, right? Same thing's true of negative words too. What you add in God's kingdom, Jesus multiplies. And we have seen that. The reason that we exist is because we believe that God wants to change the hearts and minds of men and women and children and the next generation and the generation after that. And we feel called to play a role in that. And it's happening. What we have added the past 10 years have been incredible. And we sent out a survey a little bit ago. And one of the questions we said was, is there anything else you want to say? Now, listen, let me be clear. Most of you were very positive. It was awesome. A few of you were not, but it's okay because we know who you are. We'll get you. So, no, they're anonymous. We're just kidding. But I want to read you one of the surveys, one of the responses. And I'll just say this. If this is you, I would love to thank you personally. I don't want to embarrass you or whatever, but this one just moved me. And it really, this comment, this just encapsulates and encompasses so much of what we're about. And they said this: RiverLake Church has radically changed our life. We went from church being a have-to, checkmark box, to now church is somewhere we want to be. It's a craving and a need. We have learned so much about the Bible and ways that it is applicable to our lives now. And here's the deal. That could finish and we could be done and be like, man, that's awesome. But they go on. They said, I love this. I learned about the real Jesus. That is why we exist. When we talk about relevant, simple, and real, it is easy. It is easy to have a fake version of Jesus. It is easy to have a wrong version of Jesus. In fact, they go on to explain the Jesus, the wrong version that they grew up with. Not the dictator, watching to see if you're following the rules, but the true Jesus that wants a relationship with me. And then the last part about this quote, and I'm telling you, this is everything for me. They go on to say, it's changed our lives, and now I am able to teach my kids about the Jesus that I never knew growing up. That is generational change. That is we add to them, and God is multiplying through them and their family and their kids, and God willing, their kids, and generations are different because people added. Because people gave, because people served. It is what we're about. When we add whatever it is, Jesus multiplies it in a mighty, mighty way, and they wrap it up. And they say, RiverLake Church is so important to us. We're so thankful for Pastor Nick and the team that started it. I love the fact that they recognize there was a team of people, a small group of people, and maybe some of you are here, maybe some of you are still watching because you don't live here anymore. A small group of people got together, and they said, what if? What if we created a different kind of church? What if we sang different kind of music? What if the pastor was really sarcastic and had to apologize sometimes for what he said, but it's okay? What if we really radically loved people who were nothing like us? What if we gave generously, financially, with nothing in return, just to be a blessing? What could that church do? And that small group of people added, and you're all here, and you're watching online, in multiple services, in multiple states, and God has multiplied it. And it's so important for us. Because as we shift to the next 10 years, guess what? God's not done. And while we had a little bit to add with a small group of people then, man, can you imagine if we all did this? Like, we have more to add right now because we have more people, we have more resources, we have more influence. God has blessed us. Jesus has already multiplied it. Can you imagine if we don't stop? I believe as a church, we're just getting started, which leads to the second half of the vision. I have shared the first half multiple times. I've not shared the second half of what God said to me that day. Because God said to me that day, the first half, he asked me the question, which disciple do you want to be? The one that focuses only on money and just kind of complains? Do you want to be the other 11 who do nothing? Or the other 10? Or do you want to be the person who steals people's 5 loaves and 2 fish and give it to me? Not the stealing part. But anyway, like, who do you want to be? But the second half of the vision is probably more important. The second half was Jesus spoke to me as clear as he speaks to me. And he says, Nick, if you are faithful, you and that church will reach thousands. And we're not there yet. And so the tension was this, that vision of what God's done was so incredible so far. Most church plants don't survive 2 years. Only like a few small percentage get past 100 people. And God has multiplied so much. But what I realized when we got done with year 9 and I started prepping for year 10, we haven't reached thousands yet. That God wants to multiply us in ways that we can't imagine. He wants to take what we add and multiply it. And so I started to work, and I had this principle that you're going to hear, and I'm spiritually aggressive. Like, I love it. I love to go. I'm a go until God says no kind of a guy. And so I was looking around, just this is all transparency. This is my heart, all transparency going, man, listen, we're here and we're reaching hundreds. We got some stuff, and here's the deal. Second service, you can look around. We're full. Side note, we're full. If you could go to first or third, that would be great. That would be really helpful, okay? We're full, and I'm looking around, I'm going, this, for us to reach thousands, there's a few options. And so one of it was like, I could sit back again and go, hey, listen, we're going to expand for a third time in 4 years. And so we need another like $2 million and stuff like that. And that just hurt my soul. I didn't feel like I could do that. And so I was like, that's probably not a good option. We could go online, and we've looked at online investment and kind of what that looks like. Or where I kind of landed about a year ago is it would be cheaper, better, and fall in line with what we want to do to multiply our campuses. And to go to multi-site and to sit back and go, listen, we're just going to take what we do here. We're going to do it in a different place. And so we kind of talked about that. I shared that with a few of our staff members, says, hey, we're going multi-site, and God's kind of showed us, and this is what we're going to do. And man, I just very aggressively, I was like, oh, I found the spot too. And literally it was like far enough away to be far, close enough that I could drive if I needed to. And so I started praying, going, God, that's it, and let's go, and come on, I'm excited. And I even went out there, drove around the town for a little bit, prayed over it. It's like, man, this is incredible. And again, maybe that's kind of where you're at, that you're being that aggressive. You're like, oh, let's go. But I want to give you a principle that God kind of showed me that I think is really important for us as a church, but also you individually, because it's easy to mix up the two. See, in the middle of all of this, I'm praying. I'm like, okay, this is it. I even kind of circled on a map. I mean, I started a journal with it. It was awesome. I'm calling other pastors. How do you do multi-site? What's that look like? And I'm having conversations, and I'm making plans, because what do we do? Core value number 5, we can't plan a move of God, but I can prepare for it. So I'm preparing. And then I was in the middle of my devotion time, and I was walking through the book of Genesis. And I came across a very peculiar story. It's the story where Abraham and Lot, they have grown, so they've got a size problem. They've got we'll call it a second service problem for today's message. And they're like, what do we do? And so here's what it says. They said, we got to separate the whole deal. And it says this: Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan towards Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And he goes on. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out towards the east. The two men parted company. And then it wraps up. Abram lived in the land of Canaan while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. And I read that, and I literally, this is kind of how I pray. Hopefully this is an insight into my brokenness a little bit. But I prayed, I said, God, what in the world does that have to do with what I'm walking through? This is a very weird story for me to read. Like, it's just, I need some clarity on how this applies to multi-site campuses. It's clear as God speaks to me. He said, Nick, here's the deal. Lot made a short-sighted decision based on what he saw, not what I knew. You're about to make a short-sighted decision based on what you see, not what I know. And I was done. I was like, no multi-site there. Because listen, I don't know if you're new to church. It ends poorly for Sodom and Gomorrah. Just side note, okay? Like that's kind of an insider information, but it goes very poorly for them, all right? And I was like done. I called our team. I was like, listen, here's the deal. We're going to shut that down. I have no clue what God wants to do, but here's the spiritual principle for you and for us as a church. Don't confuse what with when or how. Sometimes we do that. I mean, think about the story of David and Goliath, you know, the whole thing. Why does David fight Goliath? Because a few chapters earlier, actually one chapter earlier, God anoints David as king. And David's like, I'm going to be king. He's like, yeah, that's what's going to happen to you. When? Like 30 years. Okay, that's not as cool, all right? See, sometimes in church life, we can super spiritualize stuff and confuse what with when. And we're like, oh, God told me to marry him. Okay, but you've been dating for a week. Chill, all right? Like, calm it down. You're going to scare him away. And we can confuse what with when. And what God was showing me in that moment, and maybe you need to hear this too, that God's put a vision in your heart to do something. Maybe it's with a person or a place or a project, a career thing, a relationship thing. I don't know what it is, but you're confusing what with when. And so the issue is for us, let me be very transparent. I'm not super clear when or even kind of what. May go multi-site, may not. May really invest heavily in online campuses. We're looking into a Spanish-speaking situation with that. There's an unmet area of our Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters who may try to reach out to. We could do an expansion. I'd need a very clear voice of God and a massive check. But so if you're thinking about that, anyway, so just kidding. Now, let me be very clear. I need to be clear about this. I'm not quite sure when and how, but I know exactly what we're going to be doing. In the meantime, what we're going to be doing is exactly what we're currently doing. We're going to continue to radically bless this city. We're going to continue to preach the gospel. We're going to continue to create environments where people feel safe, loved, and accepted no matter where they're at and what they're doing and what they did the night before. We're going to continue to be the church and do the things that made us successful until God gives us the green light to go. That is what we are going to be doing. When and how we fulfill that vision, we're still praying for it. In fact, the reason I'm sharing this story with you is because I want you to be a part of the solution with it. I'm going to invite you into the behind the scenes to kind of partner with us. In fact, this whole series is about the things that we can do together as a church, as a unit, as a one people to kind of figure out what that looks like for us. Because what happened with me is when that hit, I felt stuck. I mean, I did. I felt like, man, God, you've given me this vision. Like, you've given me this tension to reach thousands and thousands of people. And yet, I'm having big faith. Let's go. And you're like, whoa. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like God's like, man, listen, I just want you to be stuck for like 1, 2, skip a few, 20 years. I want you to feel stuck in a job that you can't stand. I want you to feel stuck in a sickness that you can't heal. I want you to feel stuck in a marriage that you can't fix. I want you to feel stuck. I don't think that God wants us to feel stuck, but man, it's so easy to feel that way. And the question is, what do you do in the middle of that? What do you do when you're being spiritually aggressive and you're trying to live it out and go, God, I'm going, like, let's go. What's the holdup? Well, for me, and again, I'm just kind of sharing what God's shown me in the last year, and I hope it relates to you in some way. I went back to the beginning of that story with Abraham and Lot. There's a famous verse, and really passage, a few verses that I think maybe could speak to you. I know it spoke to me. And it's the previous chapter, and it says this. This is God's introduction to Abram. And it says, the Lord said to Abram, who we later call Abraham, Go from your country and your people and your father's household to the land I will show you. Go, but don't miss this. It has to go from something until you can step into something. That the order is really, really important. And one of the things that God was saying to me, and I think he's saying to all of us as a church, is before we can step into what's next, we have to let go of what we're holding on to right now. That he had to be willing to let go of things that weren't even bad. I mean, let's be really, really honest. He's like, I want you to go from your country. There's nothing wrong with this country. From your people. There was nothing wrong with his people. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing bad about that. From your household. He had great in-laws. He had a nephew, Lot, who was kind of troublesome. But anyway, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think what holds so many Christians back is there's so many people, they're holding on to right now, and they want to step into what's next, but they're unwilling to go from something. They just want to step into something, and they're torn. And what God's saying to some of you right now is you're holding on to something that is not bad. It's good. But it's holding you back from great. Abram had a good life before God interrupted it. He did. You read the story, he had some money, he had some success, had a good family, had a good wife, had a good country. Really, he had a good life. But God was saying, yeah, but are you willing to let go of what's good? Because I'm about to blow you away if you're willing to. And it's going to be amazing. And my prayer is through this series, God's going to wake some of you up spiritually. Because you're good. There's nothing wrong. You got a good job. You got a good family. You got a good life. Man, you got a good thing, but God's going to ask you to let go of some stuff that you're holding on to step into what is great and do something amazing in and through you. See, at the end of the day, sometimes we're waiting for God to tell us what God wants to show us. We're waiting. We're holding on to this going, okay, God, just like Abram. Hey, God, where are we going? Where are we going? I'm not going to tell you. No, God, you want me to let go of this thing, okay? You want me to walk away from that relationship that's not healthy, or you want me to give up that habit or that addiction or that thing. You want me to let go of this, but just if you could just tell me where we're going. He's like, no, listen, I'm going to show you. See, we look for information. God's wanting to give us revelation. It's very different. And what we're stuck with is, man, if I can just hear the right sermon, if I can just read the right book, if I can just get the right information, man, then I'll let go. And God said, no, you won't. I got to show you this. That's faith. Faith is being willing to let go of what you're holding on to before you see what God wants to give you. And too often we're stuck. We're stuck and we're going, God, if you would just tell me. And he's going, no, I'll show you though. If you'll let go, if you'll start to step, if you'll walk away from that, you're going to step into something. I will show you. You just got to walk away first. And then he goes on, he says it this way. He says, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. Don't miss this. This is where some of you are stuck. He says, I'm going to bless you. Why? So you can be a blessing. Some of you here today, you're blessed, but you're not a blessing. You would even say, no, I'm blessed. I'm blessed financially. I'm blessed relationally. I'm blessed with a great marriage. Yeah, you're a blessing. I mean, you're blessed. You're not a blessing. And again, that's that shift that God wants to do in and through you. He has set you up in so many different ways. And he goes on. He says, I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So, Abram, he went. Next one. As the Lord told him. And Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. Here's what I just say with that. I love especially the Old Testament because age never seems to be a limiter on action. See, in our world right now, maybe that's your excuse. We always put these age things on. It's like, oh, Nick, man, what you're talking about, man, I would love to take big risks to be spiritually aggressive for God. And if I was 15 again, man, that'd be awesome. I would totally do that. But I'm not. I'm not 15 anymore. Or, man, listen, that's great. I would love to kind of give everything up, but I'm like 22 and I just finished my degree and I got to go out and I got to get this job and I got to do all these things and, whole deal, I'm dating somebody and, God's asked me to walk away from some stuff, but I'm kind of committed to that. Or maybe you're 35 or 45 and you're like, are you kidding me? You want me to give up everything and kind of walk away from some stuff? God, okay, listen, I'm married and I got like 2 or 3 or 5 kids and it's kind of a tension, Or you're 55 or 65, or maybe you're even 75, and you're like, are you kidding me? Do you know how old I am? It's too late for me. And I love Scripture. God's like, no. I'm not looking for somebody the right age. I'm looking for somebody who's willing to take the right actions. I'm not looking for somebody with money. I'm looking for somebody with faith. That's what he's looking for. And it doesn't matter how old you are right now. It doesn't even matter where you are. You can be watching online. God is looking for people to take steps of faith, to be spiritually aggressive in whatever way he's called you to be. And your age will not limit you. Your actions are what's going to hold you back. And so here's the principle. Here's how kind of we just do. I said it a little bit earlier. My encouragement is do what you know, and God will show you where to go. So let me just ask you real quickly, kind of unpack this together. What is it you know you should do that you won't? What is it? Forgiving somebody, giving up something, walking away from something, maybe stepping into something. I don't know what it is. What is it that you feel stuck spiritually? And God's going, I already spoke to you. I want you to do what you know. So to say differently, and this is really kind of the heart, the vision for our church for the next year, is to ask the question, what's next? What's next? What's next? Can you imagine the difference your life would have if you woke up every single day and you just humbly said to God, God, okay, listen, I got a whole day. I got 24 hours. What's next? What's next for my marriage? Do you know how marriages would change overnight if every single day you woke up and you're like, God, okay, listen, I've got a good marriage. What's next? How do I make it great? Or if you woke up and go, I got a great marriage, God, what's next? How do I make it amazing? And if you're here today and you're like, I have amazing marriage, ask your spouse. You probably don't. So anyway, just totally different thing. With your kids, could you imagine how different your kids would turn out? Especially if you got younger ones, if every single month maybe you sat with your spouse and just said, hey, what's the next thing that we're going to teach them intentionally, that we're going to invest in them, we're going to speak life into them. And every single month you are just speaking life, speaking truth, training them in the ways of the Lord instead of just hoping that the school system works it out okay. Can you imagine how your faith would be fueled if every single day you took a step of faith for God? I mean, every single day, and just let him show up, how that would fuel and grow and strengthen your faith. What the church is lacking is men and women who will step up and say, what's next? And so as a church, that's really our heartbeat right now. That's what we're going to be talking about over the next several months. What's next? We want to be a community of people who value God's voice in our lives and refuse to settle, refuse to live off old memories and hope it leads to a new faith. So many of you, you have an old faith because you've not stepped into new steps. And so that's kind of the whole deal. And so as we wrap this up, I want to come back to the story. I want to come back to the story because here's the deal. I know what we're going to be doing. I know we're going to be doing radical generosity. We're going to be sharing the gospel. We're going to be doing so many incredible things for the community and creating environments where they're relevant, simple, and real, and doing online services. I know kind of what we're doing. I've got it clear. But do you know what will hold us back from that? It's you and me. See, I want to go back to the story that, again, is central to this church's foundation and central to where we're at because there's a small detail in there that I think we miss sometimes. It says this, Mark 6, Jesus taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them as well. See, here's the last thing I want you to see. We'll wrap it up. What holds the church back is when Christians think they're the crowd. I read that story and I just think that really is the struggle. Too many Christians think they're the crowd in the story. They're like, that's me, feed me. That's me. I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to be with Jesus. Okay, I just love Jesus. Why? He's just doing all these miracles. And I was there when he turned water into wine. That was a great day. I love that part. Okay, that was great. And he healed this one woman of kind of this bleeding thing. That was really cool to see. And then he brought somebody back from the dead. And he's feeding people. And like I want to be fed just because I'm the crowd. And I would just say this as your pastor, if this is your church, or maybe you're watching online, just as a friend if I'm not your pastor, okay? If you're a Christian, you're not the crowd. You're the disciple. Somebody like that. Okay, thank you. I'll give you the tip afterward. Okay, yeah, that's great. You're the disciple. You're called to take what Jesus has given you financially, experientially, relationally, time-wise. You're called as a Christian to take what Jesus has given you and distribute it to the crowd. The crowd is our community. The crowd is our city. The crowd are the people that we need to be doing the things that we are called to do as a church. And as long as the church acts like the crowd and not the disciples, we will stay stuck. And that's where some of you are. You show up every single week, or maybe you watch online every single week, and you just kind of sit there and be like, man, I hope it's a good week. Just feed me. And listen, I'm all for, I hope this feeds you. I hope it speaks to you. I work really hard on my sermons that you walk out going, that was great. I know what to do. So good. This is not to mock that, okay? I hope that happens. But if that's all you do, you're the crowd. The disciples heard the words of Jesus. They heard the sermons, but then they distributed the gifts that he gave them. And we are called to do that. We are called to distribute what God has given us because we are a disciple, not the crowd. What's going to hold your faith back? What's going to hold the church as a Big C church back is if we have a bunch of people who show up every single week thinking they're the crowd and not the Christians. And so in light of that, here's what I hope you get out today. Today we talked about the church and kind of where we're going and what's going on, and I'm so excited about where we're going. We're going to unpack, actually, the rest of this series is going to be 5 principles that we're going to do together as a church to continually pursue who Jesus is, to continue to add so that we will multiply continually, that the next 10 years will be better than the first 10 years. But in light of that, in the middle of all that, I want to give you 5 things, we wrap it up, that you can do. 5 things that I think, man, I call them the basic 5. That if you're here today and you're a Christian, okay, this is your words, not my words. That if you say, I'm a Christian, there are 5 things that is irrelevant of your age, of your season, of what's going on. There are 5 things. It's kind of like, man, this is what a Christian does behaviorally, regardless of how they feel or what's happened. These are the guiding things. And here we go, just really quickly. Number 1 is attendance. It's just being present. I think there's power when you just show up. There's power when you just even if the message stinks. I know that never happens here, but even if the message stinks, there's power when you show up. And what happens is, Paul writes this, he says, listen, make sure that you do not forsake the assembling of others. Why does he say that? Because it's so easy in our world to be so distracted and go, hey, listen, we're just going to take the weekend off and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And I don't really kind of like this series. I think he's going to talk about that. And I don't really want to hear that or he always talks about that or whatever that is. And what happens is, and I run into so many people, and the craziest thing, I'm learning this right now. I was listening to somebody, and he said, listen, in your church, the people that don't show up anymore, they haven't left. They just quit coming. And see, I just kind of assumed, I run into people at Walmart or whatever. It's like, hey, where you guys going now? It's like, oh, no, we're there. Matter of fact, maybe some of you are watching online because you just quit coming. I want to speak to you just as your pastor, as your friend. Do not forsake the assembly of others. There's power when you come together. And I get there's issues, and don't do that. It's one of the basic 5s. And I want to encourage some of you here and online to make it a priority to say, no, I'm going to be here. This is important. God does something here. Now, the second thing I'm going to say, and I kind of alluded to this, is do you want to know one of the best ways you can serve our church is to make space for our church. So please come to first and third service. Please come to first and third service. Please come to first and third service. And I'm joking a little bit, but actually one of the things that we talk about as a church is we sacrifice the things we love for those we love. And so here's the deal. If you're a Christian, I'm going to seriously ask you, and I know some people have to come to second service or whatever, but if you're a Christian, I'm going to seriously ask you, would you sacrifice your favorite service to create space for somebody who doesn't know God so they can come and find him and come to first or third? That would be huge for us because this service is packed. Second one's small groups. You should be connected in a small group, period. They're like, no, it's really clear. Acts talks about this, and I don't have time to unpack it really well, but it says in the first church that they met at the temple and in the homes. There's an and. Here's the deal. Don't put an or where God put an and. That's what we do. Put an or. Like, oh yeah, I can either come to small group and I'm really connected. I got a home group, Nick. I'm there. I might watch online a little bit or whatever. Like, no. God put an and there. You should be attending a service, hearing the word of God, worshiping, talking to the people, and you should be connected in a small group of people. You can't do that here. You cannot share where your faith. You cannot ask people to pray for you here. I mean, you can, but it's just different. You are designed to be in a small group of people who are living life together, who are praying together, who are walking with you through your highs, through your lows, through your pain, through all of that. You were made for that. And so here's the deal. You should be connected in a small group. Well, it's not the right season. It's regardless of season. So you should check out our small groups. We have some incredible open small groups, and if we don't have one, talk to Pastor Jamie. Maybe God's calling you to lead one. Okay? Giving, be abundantly clear. The series is not about giving, so there's going to be no offering at the end of the series or whatever. Listen, so you can, but let me be very clear. Do you know what holds the church back sometimes? Is lack of giving. Do you know how much ministry we can do for $100? $100 worth of ministry. That's it. It's not a trick question. And again, so many people sit back and go, Nick, why don't we do this? And why don't we do this? And why don't we do this? Because I say it all the time. We go as far as fast as you give. And here's the deal. Some of you in here today, you don't give it all. You should start giving. Why? Because you're not the crowd. You're Christian. Christians give. It's central to everything in the gospel. It's central to everything. You should give. Some of you give to projects because you're like, I don't know if I like it, if it lines up with me, if it's special, if it's like, no. You should give consistently and in order with what God has blessed you with. Period. That's what Christians do. Crowds get swayed by emotions, and it's up and down. Serving, you should serve, period. Again, these are just basics. These are like, well, what about like, no. If you're here today, crowds want to be served. Christians understand that they are called to serve. Jesus said this, I've come to serve, not be served. No offense to you, but he's better than you. So if his thing was, no, I'm not too busy with my life and my schedule to get on my hands and feet and wash the feet of my disciples. I'm not too busy to show up in other people's world and do a miracle and do something. If that was his value, and I'm pushing, I get it. You're called to serve. And some of you need to hear that because you've never been pushed and you've just spent your whole Christian life acting like the crowd, not acting like a Christian, and you've wondered why you have not experienced God like other people. It's because you were on the wrong side of the story. And today's your invitation. Invitation to step into it. Last one is inviting. Evangelism should be central to this. You want to know how we're going to reach thousands of people? How that looks like? It's when you invite, when I invite, when we take seriously the gospel. Like Jesus' last words were this. If you want to know what's important to somebody, look at the last thing they said. And he looks at his, and his key word, disciples. Do you know why sometimes you check that out? Because you're like, I'm not one of the disciples. Yes, you are. He said to his disciples, go into all the world and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Do you know what's going to change the city of Glasgow? It's when the local church goes from a crowd to a Christian and starts to take seriously the gospel and sharing their faith and inviting them to an empty second service because many of them went to first and third service. And we're the church. And so as we wrap it up today, here's what I want you to hear. Just two things. Number one, man, we're excited about the future. We really are. I'm so pumped up. I really do believe with all of my heart that the next 10 years is going to be better than the first 10 years because we're going to apply these principles. We're going to go until God says no. We're going to add and let Jesus multiply. We're going to not confuse what with when and how. We're going to do all these things, and we're going to make sure as a church that we act like the Christians and not the crowd. And so for you, as we talk about this, here's what I want to do. Here's how I want to wrap this up. We got a card in front of you. For some of you, maybe this is your step that says, I've decided. And on the back, it's got a whole bunch of things. I've decided to follow Jesus, rededicate my life, baptize, serve, join a small group. I have questions about Jesus, or you can fill in the blank. Here's what I want to say. For some of you here today, you need to not leave until you make a decision. The Holy Spirit's convicting you to make a decision, and you're going to be tempted to sit back and go, I'll think about it. I'll pray about it. You should never pray about what God's already made clear. You should, really. Some of you are like, you should never pray about what God's already spoken about. There are certain things that you shouldn't pray about. You should pray about direction, but once God spoke it to you, you need to do it. And so before you leave today, here's what I want to encourage you to do. Just put your name there, an email address, and you can just put what step you need to take. Which are the steps that we put up there? I don't know what it is. And then as you leave, you can drop it in our Dropbox, or you can hand it to, we're creating a new next steps table out there that we're in the process of doing. Robin and Pastor Kevin will be out there. If you want some questions, or maybe you just like, I'm not sure my next step, can somebody call me and talk to me? We will do that. We want to make it easy for you to find and follow Jesus. Whatever your next step is, I believe it's going to change your life if you do it. Because God's looking for a people who are willing to walk away from something and step into something, who are willing to ask the question, what's next? I'm excited. I'm pumped. I hope you are too. Would you stand with me? I want to pray for you as we kind of wrap up today. God, thank you for this day. I pray that you would make it clear what's next. The hearts and the minds of the men and women in this room and those watching online. God, speak to them. Convict them. Call them. I pray as a church that we would step into that we as a body would be able to let go of what's the past. That we would be willing to just ask the question together, what's next for us? And we would be faithful to step into it. And in the meantime, we would continue to do what we know. We would trust you, God. Thank you for this church in the previous 10 years, and thank you ahead of time for what you're going to do in the next 10. We love you. We thank you, Jesus. Amen. All right, last thing real quick before you get out of here really quickly. Hey, listen, if you need to give your life to Christ or maybe you want to talk to somebody, we have care team up front. They would love to talk to you. Really, those connection cards, you drop them in the box. Do that. For everybody else, hey, have a great week. Thank you for making the first 10 years incredible. I really cannot wait for the next. God bless. See you.